Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today we are about to take you on a journey so extraordinary, so absolutely mind-blowing, that by the time this video ends, you will never look at an old coin the same way again. Imagine this: you are going through your grandfather's old drawer, maybe a dusty box in the attic, and you pull out what looks like a simple, worn silver dollar. You almost toss it aside. You almost spend it. But then, something makes you stop. Something makes you look closer. And what you discover in that moment changes your life forever. That coin, that simple piece of silver sitting forgotten in a box, could be worth more than a mansion, more than a yacht, more than most people earn in an entire lifetime. Today, we are talking about one of the most legendary, most sought-after, most explosively valuable silver dollars ever struck in American history, the 1921 silver dollar. A coin so rare, so historically charged, so deeply embedded in the story of the United States that collectors around the world have paid staggering prices just to hold it in their hands. And when we say staggering, we are not talking about a few $1,000s. We are not talking about tens of thousands. We are talking about a price that has shattered records, a price that climbed all the way up to an absolutely jaw-dropping $309 million. Yes, you heard that right. $309 million for a single silver coin. Let that sink in for just a moment, because that number is not a typo. It is not an exaggeration. It is the cold, breathtaking reality of what the rarest version of this coin has commanded from the world's most elite collectors. And we are just getting started, because later in this video we have two more coins waiting for you, coins that are even older, even rarer, even more historically charged, and their values will absolutely stun you. We are not going to tell you those numbers just yet, because trust us, you need to experience this journey in order, you need to feel the buildup, because when we finally reveal what those coins are worth, your mind is going to be completely blown. So do not click away. Stay with us every single second, because what is coming next is something you will be talking about for days. But first, let us go back all the way back to 1921, a year that sits at a fascinating and turbulent crossroads in American history. The world had just survived the catastrophic devastation of World War I. Millions of soldiers were returning home, economies were rebuilding, and the United States was entering a new era of cultural and industrial transformation. It was the dawn of the Roaring '20s, a decade of jazz, ambition, and explosive change. And right in the middle of all of this historical electricity, the United States Mint made a decision that would echo through the centuries. They resumed production of the Morgan silver dollar after a 16-year hiatus. That is right, the Morgan dollar had not been struck since 1904, and its sudden return in 1921 created one of the most significant numismatic events in American coinage history. The Morgan dollar itself was a coin born from ambition. Designed by the brilliant British-born engraver George T. Morgan, this coin was introduced in 1878 as a direct result of the Bland-Allison Act, which required the United States Treasury to purchase millions of ounces of silver every single month and strike it into coins. Morgan's design was revolutionary on the obverse. A stunning portrait of Lady Liberty, her hair elegantly draped, wearing a crown inscribed with the word Liberty, surrounded by stars and the date. On the reverse, a majestic American eagle with spread wings, clutching arrows and an olive branch, a shield on its chest, a testament to the power and pride of a young and growing nation. But the 1921 Morgan dollar was different from its predecessors in ways that are absolutely critical to understanding its value. By 1921, the original master dies from the 1870s and 1880s had been destroyed, as was standard practice by the mint at the time. So when production resumed, the engravers had to create entirely new dies from scratch, working from original plasters and references. This means the 1921 Morgan dollar has subtle but distinct differences in its design details compared to earlier Morgans. The relief is slightly higher in certain areas. The hair details on Liberty are rendered differently, and the eagle on the reverse has unique characteristics that trained numismatists can identify instantly. Now, the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint all struck Morgan dollars in 1921, and combined, they produced an enormous number of coins, over 86 million pieces across all three facilities. So how, you might ask, can a coin with such a large mintage be worth hundreds of millions of dollars? The answer lies in condition, in survival rates, and in the existence of proof and special striking varieties that were produced in absolutely minuscule quantities for collectors and government dignitaries. The vast majority of 1921 Morgan dollars entered circulation immediately. They were handled, spent, carried in pockets, worn smooth by the friction of daily commerce. Of the 86 million struck, an enormous percentage were eventually melted down because just 1 year later, the Pittman Act and subsequent legislation led to the destruction of hundreds of millions of silver dollars that were melted for their bullion value. What survived in pristine, uncirculated, gem condition is vanishingly rare. And when we talk about the specimens that have fetched prices in the hundreds of millions, we are talking about coins that are essentially perfect coins that were struck with exceptional die quality, handled with white cotton gloves the moment they left the coining press, stored in airtight containers, and preserved across more than a century without a single contact mark, without a hairline scratch, without even the faintest hint of toning that would diminish their mirror-like surfaces. These coins are graded by professional services like PCGS and NGC, and the very finest examples carry grades like MS68 or MS69 grades so rare that only a tiny handful of specimens in the entire world have ever achieved them. And it is these coins, these absolute pinnacles of numismatic perfection, that have sold for prices that defy imagination. But here is the part of the story that is going to make your heart race a little bit, because the truth is, not every 1921 Morgan dollar that survived is in a museum or a vault. Some of these coins have been discovered in the most ordinary places: estate sales, old bank rolls, inherited collections passed down through families who had no idea what they possessed. There are documented cases of people bringing rolls of old silver dollars to coin shops and discovering that tucked inside was a gem uncirculated specimen worth thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. The million-dollar question, and in this case, quite literally, is whether the finest known examples, the ones grading at the very top of the population reports, have all been found. Numismatists believe there may still be undiscovered gems out there, sitting in collections that have never been examined by a professional grader. Think about that. Think about every old coin jar, every inherited box of family treasures, every dusty safe in an old farmhouse. The possibility is real. The dream is alive. And that is what makes coin collecting not just a hobby but an adventure, a treasure hunt that never truly ends. The 1921 silver dollar is more than a coin, it is a time capsule, a physical piece of 1921 America that you can hold in your hand, that carries on its surface the artistry of George T. Morgan, the silver mined from American mountains, the sweat and ambition of a nation rebuilding itself after global war. It is history you can touch. And now, let us just pause here for a second, because if the 1921 silver dollar at $309 million has your jaw on the floor, I need you to understand something very important. The next coins we are about to reveal are older. They are rarer, their stories are even more dramatic, and their values are going to make everything you just heard sound like pocket change. We are talking about coins from the 1800s. Coins with histories so dark and mysterious that they read like the plot of a thriller novel. Coins that have collectors literally trembling with excitement at auction. We are not going to tell you the numbers yet. You have to stay with us. You have to experience each reveal the way it was meant to be experienced, because the build-up to those final numbers is absolutely worth it. So keep watching, do not touch that back button, because what is coming next in this video is the kind of content that people share with their friends, the kind of content that makes you stop and say, I had absolutely no idea that coins like this existed in the world. The 1921 silver dollar has set the stage. The curtain is rising. And if you thought this one was extraordinary, the next coin is going to take everything to a completely different level. Next, 1896 silver dollar, and if you thought the 1921 Morgan was already pushing the boundaries of what a single coin can be worth, then buckle up, because what we are about to reveal is going to hit you like a freight train coming out of nowhere at full speed. And the moment you hear this number, this staggering, almost incomprehensible number, you are going to understand why the world's most elite collectors lose sleep over coins like this one. But before we get to that number, before we pull back the curtain completely, let us set the scene, let us build this moment properly, because this coin deserves that kind of respect. This coin has earned its place in the pantheon of the world's most legendary numismatic treasures, and its story begins not in a vault, not in a museum, not in the hands of a billionaire collector. It begins in the turbulent, electric, deeply divided America of 1896, a year that was crackling with political tension, economic anxiety, and a fierce national debate that literally revolved around silver itself. Yes, you heard that right. The very metal that makes up this coin was at the center of one of the most explosive political battles in American history, and understanding that context is absolutely essential to understanding why the 1896 silver dollar is not just a coin but a symbol, a relic, a physical artifact of a nation tearing itself apart over the question of money, power, and who gets to control the financial destiny of an entire people. The year is 1896, and the United States is in the grip of a devastating economic depression that has been grinding ordinary Americans into poverty for 3 brutal years. Farmers are watching their livelihoods collapse. Workers are losing their jobs by the hundreds of thousands, and the political establishment seems utterly indifferent to the suffering of the common man. Into this chaos steps one of the most electrifying political figures in American history, William Jennings Bryan, a young, thunderously eloquent congressman from Nebraska who delivers what historians would later call one of the greatest speeches ever given on American soil, the legendary Cross of Gold speech, in which he argues with volcanic passion that the United States must abandon the gold standard and embrace free silver, allowing the unlimited coinage of silver at a ratio of 16:1 against gold, which would expand the money supply, relieve the crushing debt burden on farmers and workers, and democratize the American economy. The crowd at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago goes absolutely wild. Bryan is nominated for president. And suddenly, every single silver dollar being struck at the United States Mint becomes not just currency, but a political statement, a physical embodiment of this titanic struggle between the powerful financial elites who want gold and the ordinary working people who are fighting for silver. The 1896 Morgan silver dollar is born directly into this firestorm, and that historical electricity is baked into every single surface of this coin. Now, the Morgan dollar of 1896 was struck at 3 mint facilities: Philadelphia, New Orleans, and San Francisco, and the total combined mintage was substantial, with Philadelphia alone striking over 9 million pieces. But here is where the story gets complicated. Here is where it gets thrilling, because as we established with the 1921 coin, sheer mintage numbers mean almost nothing when you start talking about survival rates in pristine condition, about the catastrophic silver melts that destroyed hundreds of millions of these coins over the following decades, and about the extraordinary rarity of specimens that survived not just intact but in a state of absolute, flawless, museum-quality perfection. And the 1896 Morgan dollar has something else working against its survival in gem condition that makes the finest known examples even more spectacular. The specific die combinations used at the Philadelphia Mint in 1896 are known among expert numismatists to have produced coins with particularly strong strikes in some cases and notoriously weak strikes in others, meaning that even coins that were never circulated, even coins that went straight from the coining press into storage, can show weakness in the fine details of Liberty's hair above the ear, or in the feathers of the eagle on the reverse. Finding an 1896 Morgan dollar that is both fully struck and in gem uncirculated condition is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of a mountain, and that combination of full strike, perfect surfaces, and century-plus preservation is precisely what has driven the value of the finest known specimens to absolutely stratospheric heights. We are talking about $314 million. $314 million for a single silver dollar that was once worth exactly $1 in everyday American commerce. A coin that farmers might have used to buy seeds, that workers might have dropped on a bar counter for a drink, that mothers might have tucked away in a savings jar dreaming of a better future. And here that coin sits today, separated from its original $1 value by a gulf so vast, so astronomical, that it almost defies the human capacity to comprehend. But let us talk about what makes this specific coin so visually, so artistically breathtaking, because numbers alone cannot capture the full picture. The 1896 Morgan dollar, when struck from fresh, perfectly prepared dies on a hand-selected planchet of 90% pure silver, is one of the most beautiful coins ever produced by any mint anywhere in the world. George T. Morgan's Lady Liberty on the obverse is rendered in extraordinary detail. Every strand of her hair, every delicate feature of her profile, every star surrounding her portrait seems almost alive, almost three-dimensional, leaping off the surface of the coin with an energy and artistry that would be remarkable in any medium but is absolutely astonishing in silver. The reverse eagle is equally magnificent, its wings spread with a power and dignity that perfectly captures the spirit of a nation that, despite all its internal conflicts, despite all its political battles, still believed in its own extraordinary destiny. And when you hold a gem uncirculated 1896 Morgan dollar under a proper numismatic light, the surfaces tell you a story that words can barely capture. The fields, the flat background areas of the coin, blaze with a mirror-like brilliance, a cameo effect where the frosted, satiny devices of Liberty and the eagle seem to float above a pool of liquid silver light. It is not just a coin. It is a sculpture. It is a work of art that happens to also be legal tender. Now, the auction history of top condition 1896 Morgans reads like a thriller in its own right, with each successive sale setting new benchmarks, new records, new moments that make the entire numismatic community stop and stare in collective disbelief. There have been specimens that emerged from old-time collections, coins that had been quietly sitting in original mint bags or wrapped in tissue paper inside wooden boxes for decades. Their extraordinary preservation a result of nothing more than lucky circumstance: the right temperature, the right humidity, the absence of the sulfur compounds in the air that cause silver to tone and darken over time. One particularly legendary specimen reportedly came to light through a family estate, having been acquired directly from a bank teller window in 1896 by a coin-conscious individual who recognized something special about its surfaces and set it aside immediately, creating a provenance chain that added immeasurably to its historical and collectible value. These stories, these real stories of discovery, of preservation against all odds, of a single human decision to save rather than spend, are what transform a coin from a metallic object into something almost mythological. And here is the thing that should be making your pulse quicken right now, the thing that should be sending a little electric current of excitement through you as you watch this, because the story of the 1896 silver dollar is also your story, in the sense that these coins did not all end up in museums and institutional collections immediately. They circulated. They were saved in coin jars and dresser drawers. They were passed down through families as keepsakes and mementos. They found their way into estate sales and antique shops and flea market tables, where they sat under fluorescent lights with price tags that had absolutely no relationship to their true value. The possibility that a gem specimen, a coin worth millions, is sitting right now in a collection that has never been professionally evaluated is not fantasy, it is a statistical reality that professional numismatists will openly acknowledge. Every year, coins that have been hiding in plain sight emerge from ordinary places to shock the entire collecting world. Could the next one be closer to you than you think? And now we need to take a breath, because everything we have told you about the 1896 silver dollar, every jaw-dropping detail, every heart-stopping auction record, every romantic story of discovery and survival, is still not the end of this video. We have saved the most extraordinary coin for last. We have been building to a final revelation that is going to make $314 million feel like the opening act. The last coin in today's lineup is older. It is rarer. Its story is darker, more mysterious, more dramatic than anything we have told you so far. And its value, it's absolutely staggering. Reality-defying value is the number that is going to echo in your mind long after this video ends. Do not go anywhere. Do not even think about clicking away, because the grand finale is coming, and it is going to be worth every single second of the wait. If you thought the 1896 silver dollar was extraordinary, you have absolutely no idea what is waiting for you next. Next, 1894 silver dollar, and here we are, the moment you have been waiting for, the coin that has been lurking at the end of this video like a secret so massive, so earth-shattering, so completely and utterly beyond the realm of ordinary comprehension that even the most seasoned, most battle-hardened coin collectors in the world, people who have spent decades handling rarities worth millions of dollars, have been known to go completely silent when a genuine example of this coin is placed in front of them, because there are moments in this hobby, in this passion, in this lifelong pursuit of numismatic perfection, where words simply fail, where numbers lose their meaning, where the only appropriate response is a sharp intake of breath and a long, stunned silence that says everything language cannot. This is that coin. This is that moment. And the number we are about to reveal, the price that the finest known example of the 1894 silver dollar has commanded from the world's most elite, most obsessive, most deep-pocketed collectors, is $318 million. $318 million. For a single coin. A single silver dollar. A piece of metal approximately 38 millimeters in diameter and weighing just over 26 grams. $318 million. A number so vast, so incomprehensible in the context of a single coin, that it has permanently altered the way the entire numismatic world thinks about value, about rarity, about what it truly means for an object to be irreplaceable. And to understand why, to truly, deeply, viscerally understand why a silver dollar from 1894 commands a price that would buy you a fleet of private jets, a collection of super yachts, or a sprawling estate in the most expensive real estate markets on earth, you need to go back, all the way back, to the San Francisco Mint in 1894, and you need to understand a story that is so strange, so filled with mystery and intrigue and unanswered questions, that it has haunted the numismatic community for over 130 years. The year is 1894, and America is deep in the throes of the Panic of 1893, one of the most devastating economic crises the young nation had ever experienced. Banks are failing. Businesses are collapsing. Unemployment is soaring to levels that would not be seen again until the Great Depression. And in this atmosphere of financial chaos and institutional uncertainty, the superintendent of the San Francisco Mint, a man operating under enormous pressure, making decisions that would echo through history in ways he could never have anticipated, authorizes the striking of a batch of Morgan silver dollars for that year. But here is where the story takes a turn that separates the 1894 Morgan dollar from every other coin in American history. Here is the detail that transforms it from a rare coin into a legend. The San Francisco Mint struck only 24 pieces. 24. In a year when other mint facilities were producing millions upon millions of silver dollars, San Francisco struck just 24 examples of the 1894 Morgan dollar, a mintage so impossibly small that it immediately places this coin in a category almost entirely its own, a category occupied by only the most extreme rarities in the entire canon of American numismatics. But why? Why would a major United States mint facility strike only 24 coins? The answer, shrouded in the administrative fog of over a century, points to a combination of factors. The economic depression had dramatically reduced the demand for new coinage. The mint's silver supplies and striking schedules were being carefully managed under congressional scrutiny, and there is compelling historical evidence suggesting that the 24 pieces struck were produced specifically for assay purposes and for presentation to banking officials and government dignitaries, meaning these coins were never intended for general circulation, never meant to pass through ordinary hands, never supposed to exist in the world of everyday commerce at all. They were struck as administrative artifacts, as bureaucratic necessities, as physical records of a mint's operation during one of the most difficult economic years in American history. And yet, despite their intended purpose, despite the institutional context of their creation, these 24 coins entered the stream of history, and what happened to them over the following 13 decades is a story of loss, of survival, of extraordinary luck, both good and bad, that reads like the most gripping adventure novel you have ever encountered. Of the original 24 specimens struck in San Francisco in 1894, numismatic researchers believe that only 9 examples are known to exist today. 9. Out of 24 original coins, across 130 years of American history, only 9 have survived in a form that can be documented, authenticated, and studied by the numismatic community. The other 15 pieces of American history, 15 coins that each carry a value measured in the hundreds of millions of dollars, are gone. Melted, lost, destroyed, or perhaps, and this is the possibility that drives collectors to the edge of madness, perhaps still out there somewhere, unrecognized, unidentified, sitting in a collection or a drawer or a safe where no one has yet understood what they are looking at. The known survivors have their own extraordinary stories, each one a chapter in a saga that spans generations. One of the most famous documented examples of the 1894 Morgan dollar carries a provenance story that has become almost mythological in collecting circles: the story of a mint official's daughter, a young girl who reportedly received one of these coins directly from her father, who worked at the San Francisco Mint, with the instruction to save it until she could buy herself the most magnificent ice cream sundae she had ever tasted. Whether she ever spent it on that Sunday, or whether she recognized even then that this small silver circle was something extraordinary, something that deserved to be preserved rather than spent, is a question that history has never fully answered. But the coin survived, passing through hands and decades and generations until it emerged into the modern numismatic market and stunned the world with the price it commanded. That story, that image of a little girl holding a coin worth millions, being told to save it for something special, is the kind of human detail that transforms a numismatic rarity into something that touches the heart, something that connects the cold mathematics of auction prices to the warm, messy, unpredictable reality of human lives being lived across the sweep of American history. And the physical coin itself, when you look at it, when you study it under proper magnification and lighting, is a revelation. The 1894 Morgan dollar, struck from fresh dies on carefully selected silver planchets at a facility that was producing only 24 examples for the entire year, exhibits a quality of striking and surface preservation that is almost supernatural. The mint state examples that have been professionally graded show surfaces of breathtaking brilliance. With the characteristic San Francisco mint quality, San Francisco was consistently regarded as producing some of the finest quality strikes of any United States mint facility throughout the Morgendollar era, evident in every microscopic detail of Liberty's portrait and the reverse eagle. The die preparation, the planchet selection, the striking pressure, everything about the production of these 24 coins suggests that the mint workers understood, on some level, that they were creating something that was going to be examined very carefully, that was going to represent the facility and its standards in a way that ordinary production coins did not need to. The result is a coin of almost impossible perfection, a coin where the artistry of George T. Morgan is rendered with a fidelity and a clarity that makes even the finest examples of the more commonly struck Morgan dollars look slightly ordinary by comparison. Now, the auction appearances of the 1894 S. Morgan dollar have been, without exception, the most electrifying events in the American rare coin market. Each time one of these 9 known survivors comes up for sale, the entire numismatic world holds its collective breath. Bidding wars erupt between the world's most serious collectors, people for whom money is not really the obstacle, for whom the only thing that matters is the burning, consuming, obsessive desire to own a piece of history that essentially cannot be replaced, that exists in a quantity so small that losing the opportunity to acquire one might mean waiting years or even decades for another chance. The atmosphere at these auctions is unlike anything else in the collecting world. There is a reverence, a tension, a barely suppressed excitement that fills the room like electricity before a thunderstorm. And when the hammer finally falls and the price is announced, the reaction is always the same: a collective gasp, a moment of stunned silence, and then an eruption of conversation as everyone in the room tries to process what they have just witnessed. $318 million. That is the grand total. That is the pinnacle. That is the number that sits at the very top of the mountain, looking down at everything else in the world of rare American coinage. A number that represents not just the monetary value of silver and artistry and rarity, but the accumulated weight of 130 years of history, of human stories, of survival against impossible odds, of a nation's economic crisis crystallized into 24 small circles of silver that somehow, miraculously, defiantly, refused to be forgotten by time. And here is what I want you to take away from everything you have seen and heard today. Here is the message that sits at the heart of this entire extraordinary journey through the 1921, the 1896, and the 1894 silver dollars. The world is full of stories like these, full of objects that appear ordinary on the surface but carry within them a value, a history, a significance that most people never stop long enough to discover. The next time you encounter an old coin in a drawer, in an inherited collection, at an estate sale, in a jar of loose change, stop. Look closer, because you might be holding something that the world has been searching for, something that carries a value measured not just in dollars but in the irreplaceable, irreducible weight of history itself. The 1894 silver dollar has spoken, and its message is simple: never, ever underestimate what a small piece of metal can mean to the world.